Hello everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Today we're going to be diving into another follow along episode here. I will leave links for you in the description below so you can check out the gear that I am using. I will also leave a link for you to my Amazon store in the description below. Should you have any questions about anything that you see or hear throughout this video, I'm going to encourage you to drop a comment down below and I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I'm also going to leave links for you in the description so you can download this design on your end for free so you can follow along and tattoo it. With that being said, let's dive straight on into this. I want to go over the gear that I'm using for this follow along. I'm going to be using Reelskin Fake Skin for this follow along. I use Spirit stencil paper for the design. I will leave links for you yet again in the description below for my Amazon store so you can check out everything that I've ever reviewed. Now, with that being said, I'm also going to be using Solong 00 3-round liner for this entire tattoo along with dynamic black tattooing ink. I'm going to be using my Ink Claw Dagger tattoo machine along with the new Ink Claw updated wireless power supply. And again, I can't exhaust this enough that I'm going to leave links for you down below. The method and approach that I'm going to be using is I'm going to be working off the very tip of the Solong 003 3-round liner, and I'm going to kind of build up the line. Typically when I'm using round liners, I'll be using a 7, 9, 11, a larger round liner configuration. So therefore I would typically pull one pass lines with a larger configuration, and the same approach can be with the 03 round liner, but for this specific tattoo, I decided to go ahead and do this and build up the tattoo in small little increments, as opposed to just pulling every single line with a one pass line. Now, another thing is that I'm also just working off the very tips of my needle, and I'm running at about maybe 6 volts. So typically when I'm using a smaller configuration such as a 3-round liner, I'll typically run my voltage anywhere from 5 to 6. I'll rarely ever go up above, say, 6.5. So a comfortable range for smaller needles for me is 5 volts to 6.5 depending on the machine and power supply I am using. With this approach right here, the technique that I'm using is kind of like mini tapers in and out. So I will basically kind of build the line with a bunch of little tallies, and I will do my best to kind of adequately put those tallies in a place where they all look like one nice cohesive line. Keep in mind, this isn't my desired or go-to approach. However, I kind of want to branch out of my comfortability from pulling one pass lines, and I want to try different things upon tattooing. So this is one of those journeys right here, and I'm just testing out this technique, testing out this approach to see what type of results that I get. And I would highly recommend to push yourself the same way on your end. Things that you are comfortable with, maybe tomorrow or next week, try something that you are not, and really plan out before you do it. How are you going to do it? What needle size? What voltage? Try to get a good feel before we just dive straight on in. I would like for you to also please keep in mind that this tattoo, or any tattoo that I've ever done as a matter of fact, is not by any means perfect. I have much room to grow. I have much room for improvement, and I have a lot to learn. So for me, I'm always trying different ways to do things, just so that way I get a feel of what is right for me, what's not, and I can at least have some sort of experience with specific techniques and or applications when it comes to tattooing. With this tattoo right here specific, I'm going to be using this needle all the way through the entire thing. So essentially the technique that I'm using is a tapering in and out pendulum type of motion. So I'm going and I'm putting little lines in there to create one cohesive line from point A to B. Typically my style of tattooing is single one pass lines, where I'll start from one point, put the needle into the dermis, and then I pull to the other, and I get a nice clean solid saturated line. This right here is well out of my comfortability. I don't really build up lines this way. This is not how I do my tattoos. So this was definitely an experience, and you're going to see a lot of mistakes made along the way. When I started about a year ago, my first year into tattooing, I would really fixate on all of the mistakes that I would make. They were very discouraging. I remember wanting to quit almost every day for my first year of tattooing, and I'm grateful that I didn't because I'm really getting to a point now where I'm beginning to love the craft. I'm less nervous with the craft. I'm beginning to be a lot more confident when I am tattooing as well, and all of that came from practicing on fake skin. What I am saying is we are all bound and prone to making mistakes. What I would suggest and or I guess pass on is not to fixate on the mistakes. Don't focus on the fact that whatever it is that you were doing, whatever design didn't come out to your satisfaction or to your liking. More so take the information that you learn from that tattoo and use it as a I guess a stool, a stepping stone, so that way you know now what not to do. The reason I say this is from my personal experience. At least for me, I'm going to speak for myself. For me, I would compare myself to all of the world's best tattoos that I've ever seen, and not really considering all the practical variables that reality had to offer. So when I first started and upon beginning my journey, whenever I would pull a line, I guess I had certain expectations that I would build up in my head that I didn't really work up to yet. But yeah, I still needed that expectation to be a reality. So therefore, when I made a mistake, I was teaching myself to kind of fixate on these mistakes that I'm making. This line is wonky right here. This line is not fully consistent. This line doesn't look saturated. You kind of get the idea. These were problems that I was constantly facing when I first started tattooing. And again, I'm still at the beginning of my journey as well, but in the earlier days, these are some of my experiences that I was going through. So naturally, I was developing this way of being where I would have to fixate on all of my mistakes, and then I would just completely forget about the rules and fundamentals, and I just kind of took those for granted. So now what I do is I focus on the fundamentals and the basics of right and wrong and how things are done, and once I learn that, I can kind of start tuning things to my liking. But it took me a bit to kind of get around that slump where everything had to be perfect. Things need to be nice and consistent. I need to be as good as the best of the best, which was a totally made up, fictitious idea that I made in my head. I guess it was a standard that I was setting. However, now it seems more practical that I can set a standard because I'm learning the fundamentals and the basics, because I know how things should be. I know how to get from A to B. So therefore, I'm creating a sense of a standard, a sense of a foundation. I'm creating stability for my tattooing career, so to speak. So back to not being perfect. This tattoo, or any tattoo that I've ever done, is not by any means perfect. However, I am still learning. I'm practicing all of the fundamentals, and that is what's most important because that's what shows at the end of the day. So you can see the technique right here that I'm applying. It's still a very build up type of approach. I'll pull in a nice thin line to get the line going there, and then I'll kind of go back in and build that line up. And again, I'm kind of using tapering in and out type of motions when I can to connect A to B, or I will just simply use the very, very tip of the needle and kind of start marking the line in as you saw right there before that dot. This kind of goes without saying, but I still want to touch base on this aspect as well. So keep in mind, I am using a very, very thin line weight here, and this line weight is real easy to have blowouts. This line weight right here is real easy to cause pain and damage to the client. So when I use line weights like this, I'm very, very mindful of how I am holding my machine. But not only that, I'm very, very mindful of the tip of my needle. I'm always keeping an eye on the tip of my needle, and I'm always feeling that tip of the needle as well. And I'm always just feeling for a certain resistance. I never really want to approach thinner line weights the same way that I do, say, 11 round liners, 9 round liners. It is completely different. So what I'm saying is when I'm using these small of configurations, I'm literally letting the needle tip do all of the work for me, and I rarely have to ever even press into the skin to penetrate it, as again, the needle is small enough to penetrate and puncture through the skin on its own because of its configuration size. So when using smaller configurations of such, just be very, very mindful with the tips of your needles. Always make sure that you're just using the very, very tips. It doesn't take much pressure at all for these needles to do their jobs. I would highly recommend to utilize these needles on fake skin and really get acquainted and comfortable before ever trying to use thinner line weights on a human skin. If you wanted to go with a thicker line weight on your end, a different line weight, by all means, I highly encourage you to go ahead and use your creative insight. Pick the line weight that you feel is more appropriate for this specific tattoo. And again, one of the only reasons why I approached it with a 3-round liner is because I want to practice different approaches and different techniques. For me, I'm just practicing and establishing fundamentals. So that's the ultimate reason why I chose this specific needle configuration. Had I wanted to play it the safe route, I probably would have chosen maybe a 009 round liner for this entire thing. I think a 007 or 9 round liner would have worked out fantastic for this tattoo. So I figured that'd be enough of me rambling here for you all. The approach and technique is going to essentially stay the same throughout this entire tattoo, as that is my focus. I am trying to build a tattoo using a 3-round liner. That is the ultimate goal here. So I'm not going to go ahead and ramble on anymore. I'm going to allow you all to follow along and do this tattoo on your end. And I'm going to let this play out real time. Should you have any questions at all, I'm going to highly encourage you to drop them down below. Rest assured, I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction.
Reelskin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118,
By now, you're going to notice that nothing in this tattoo is perfect. In fact, for me right now, I'm very disappointed with how this tattoo is coming out. However, the earlier days, the earlier me, I would have fixated on that. I probably would have just quit this tattoo and not done it, and then probably lived the rest of my life thinking that I failed this tattoo. However, that's the old way of doing things. The new way is to finish the entire tattoo, still stick to my guns. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, utilizing my fundamentals and really paying attention to what I am doing. By the end of the tattoo, I can kind of figure out what I was doing, what I can do better, and I can really assess everything from a bird's eye view. I'm going to say this again. Don't fixate on all of the mistakes. I don't recommend doing that. That's bad for the mind, body, spirit, all of that. It is not a good way to approach it. Just try to pay attention to the fundamentals. Try to pay attention to why you're making the mistakes, the spaces in between the actions. Don't focus on the mistakes. We're going to discourage ourselves early on. Focus on the actions, focus on the learning aspect, focus on building the fundamentals and basics. I also have a full in-depth video explaining how I go about packing black with smaller needles. I will leave that video up here floating for you all. It is available on my YouTube channel. that would be pretty much it for this one. If you stuck around and followed along this entire session, I am truly grateful for you. Thank you very much. I don't have words to express how grateful I am for your support. So what I will say is, from the bottom, thank you all very much for the support. I truly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section down below, and I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I also have social medias all under the same name as this YouTube channel. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I would truly appreciate the support on there as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring that bell, as I will be doing more videos like this for you. Thank you for tuning in yet again. You have a great day.